You know what? I probably play way too many idle games. Hey, what can I say? They're a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, but they're not my only guilty pleasure when it comes to cheap entertainment. Another guilty pleasure of mine, kind of in the same realm as these idle games, are games on Kongregate and Newgrounds and Armor Games. These are the Flash games and the web games that I talked about in my Why Flash Games Are Awesome video. It might not be titled that exactly, but that was the point of that video, was to kind of celebrate idle games. But anyway, here I am on Kongregate, launching my current favorite idle game, or games I might or might not have a problem. And I look down here and it says, highest rated games. And this has been the same for as long as I've been going to Kongregate, as far as I know. So I clicked on this game called Swords and Souls. It's tagged as arena combat and fighting, and I don't know if I would actually give it those tags. It's more of an RPG with some mini games attached to it, and I figured it might make an interesting video to talk about this highest rated game and try and figure out exactly why it's the highest rated game on Kongregate and doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And after having played it, it's the highest rated game on Kongregate for a reason. This game is incredibly addicting. If you decide that you enjoy the gameplay enough, if you don't get all the way through the game, you're probably going to get at least halfway through before you've had enough. So what do you do in Swords and Souls? Well, you train. You go to the arena, you fight monsters, and if you can't defeat those monsters, you go back home and train. And that's basically the core loop of the gameplay. That's the core loop of what you're trying to do in Swords and Souls. Your ultimate goal is to defeat all of the different fights in the arena, and I guess eventually become the champion, and make a lot of money along the way. Because as you make the money, you can go back to your actual home, and then you can upgrade the home, which makes your incredibly busty wife, who is already very happy to be with you, I guess even happier? Because she's just kind of sitting there, waiting for you to come home. You can also take that money to the store to upgrade your equipment, to buy spells, and to buy potions, all of which are going to be very helpful in actually defeating the waves of the arena. And finally, there's a museum where you can go to invest your money, which will over time generate more and more money for you, and a little mushroom creature that likes to eat 4-leaf clovers and give you lots of free stuff in return. At the end of the day, this is basically dopamine hit the game. Because every little thing you do rewards you in some way, and I think that's what makes it addicting. So when you start out the game, you're pretty much nothing, and you get trashed by the very first monster in the very first fight. Or maybe it's the very second monster in the very first fight, I can't remember. Either way, it's not important. But you get trashed by that fight, and then you go to the training dojo to train. And this is probably where you're going to spend a majority of your time, and this is where the gameplay will either make it or break it for you. So the training dojo is split into 5 different mini-games. You have your strength mini-game, you have your block mini-game, you have your accuracy, dodge, and critical, and what all of these do is they increase your stats by a specific amount for every, miniature milestone that you make during that minigame. And the core concept of every single one of these minigames is the same. You do its very simple, very repetitive task in an increasingly difficult way as your combo meter builds up. And for every success you have, it increases the little blue bar at the top just a little bit more. Every time it reaches the end, you get an increase in whatever stat you're training. The higher your combo is, the faster the blue bar fills up, and thus the faster you can train up your stats. And of course, every single one of these mini-games is filled with its own little hits of dopamine to make you feel good about yourself as you're grinding through all of your stat levels. First, you have your own internal goal to try and get your combo as high as possible, but after your first time through, you're going to discover that you actually get rewarded for getting a really high combo. You get a certain medal, and the higher your combo is, the more elegant and awesome that little medal looks. Every single one of these mini-games also has a way to score perfectly on its own objective. For instance, with the accuracy minigame, if you hit a bullseye, you get perfect, which counts double towards your combo. For the block minigame, you have to let the stars hit you instead of blocking them, and for the strength minigame, you have to kick the stars while you're also dealing with the apples flying at your face. However, if you don't get perfect, it's not the end of the world, so if you need to ignore them, you can. It's not going to mess anything up. You'll also occasionally get 4-leaf clovers, which will overall help your progression. And finally, you have a handful of missions that you can only tackle one at a time. They're given to you in the bottom left corner of the screen that give you a very small, very concrete goal for you to achieve while you're doing this minigame. And once you achieve it, you get even more stats to help you out for the actual game, or I guess what you could argue is the actual game, which is the arena that we talked about earlier. And if all this sounds very stupid and kind of boring, well, it kind of probably is just a little bit boring and stupid. But it's got that progression loop and those constant dopamine hits that really make you just want to keep on going. And then you have the ultimate goal of going to the arena and trying your best to defeat every single one of those waves. And you might be wondering, hey, since it's an RPG system and there's stats involved, how does your own personal skill help you defeat these monsters? How does your own personal skill help you defeat these arena waves? And the answer to that is kind of simple. It mostly doesn't. But hey, your own personal skill is helping you get more stats more quickly to help you defeat these arena waves more and more quickly. So that little bit of training that takes up your personal skill and makes you more adept at point and click, or more adept at a DDR style minigame where you have to go up, down, and left, or more adept at timing, or more adept at rotating your mouse to target whatever you need for the block minigame, that kind of feels good in its own way. Like you feel like you've earned your stats, which is a strange thing when you really think about it. Think back to any RPG you've ever played. You don't really feel like you've earned those stats as much as you do in Swords and Souls. When you're playing an RPG, you just kill enough things and the stats are handed to you. That's not to say that Swords and Souls doesn't have its own way of handing you stats. In addition to literally being able to buy power with some of the gold that you earn, every time you level up, you're also given stat points to help bolster some of your weaker stats, and you might want to bolster those in some of the minigames that you dislike. For instance, I didn't really like the critical hit minigame or the dodge minigame as much as I liked the other minigames, so I tried to put most of my spare points into those. But also as you level up, you're given talent points and ability points. And these talent points and these ability points are really going to help you out in the arena, which we haven't even really talked about yet. So let's talk about the arena. First off, one of the talents that you start out with is a chance to stun whatever you're fighting on one of your basic attacks. So you can already tell that there's going to be a lot of RNG involved. In addition to that random stun, you also have a chance to block, you have a chance to dodge, you have a chance to critical hit, you have a chance to fire your ranged weapon, and there are also more talents that allow your ranged weapon to have a chance to poison the enemy, which is a very, very, very effective way to deal lots of damage over time, especially in the later fights. And then there's a talent that gives you a chance to regain health on every kill, which, again, helps quite a lot in the later fights and prevents you from having to use so many potions and so many spells. But where the meat of the gameplay comes from in these arena fights is the choices that you make during the fights themselves. So you have all of these skills that you've been unlocking as you leveled up, and you have all of these potions and these spells that you've collected either from the shop or got lucky from the mushroom by feeding him 4-leaf clovers and he spat out some spells for you, which is how I got most of mine. You don't really need to use them until the later fights anyway, so it's pretty easy to stay capped out on them because the game gives you so many 4-leaf clovers between all the fights that you fight and all the training sessions that you do. Anyway, a lot of the fun here comes from finding an optimal way to use your abilities, finding an optimal rotation like you would in an MMORPG, or I guess in any RPG. You want to make the most out of all the resources that you have. For instance, you're going to want to stun things as often as possible so you lose less health, but you're not going to want to use one of your double attacks or your Omni Slash until your stun is almost over. And one of the reasons you're going to want to do that is because the stun ticks down in real seconds rather than in turn order, and the poison does damage in real time as well. So if you do your Omni Slash and it takes a full second or 2 seconds to fully finish, that enemy is also taking full poison damage during that time. So you're going to want to juggle these things and make sure you're mixing and matching and only casting what you need when you really need it, but also making sure that they go on cooldown as soon as you want them to, so they can come back off of cooldown as soon as possible so you can use them again. When things get hairy, you of course have your potions and your spells. Your healing potion to heal you, of course. Your ability potion, which lowers the cooldown of all of your abilities. The strength potion, which I guess increases your strength. And I didn't really use the strength potion or the ability potion all that often because using a potion and using a spell actually takes your turn. Then you have the firebolt spell, which does a lot of damage as you could expect. You have the poison spell, which gives 2 stacks of poison. And like I mentioned earlier, the poison damage is very important, especially for the later fights, because they start taking a long time. The more stacks that you can get on your enemies, especially the bosses, the more damage you're going to be able to do, and the better your chances are at winning. And then finally, there's the lightning spell, which does a little bit of damage, and also stuns the enemy for like 2 or 3 seconds. So you have all of these resources available to you, and if you put them all together in the right way and your stats are high enough, you're going to be able to get through the fight and then you can go on to the next one. When you win the fight, you can open a treasure chest as your reward, which gives you lots of money, which is usually enough to upgrade a lot of things, including your home, your training dojo, and your equipment. You get a bunch of 4-leaf clovers and you can probably get some spells and some potions to help you out. And then you keep on fighting in the arena until you get overwhelmed, then you go back to training, and then you just do the whole thing over and over again until you beat the game. And look, I know it doesn't sound great or exciting just by watching this video. It's hard to really put into words, and I'm realizing right now that all I've really done is explain what the game is and explain my strategy for beating it. But this hasn't been my first time beating it, and I doubt it's gonna have been my last time either. I think this is at least my 3rd or 4th time playing through this game. And every single time I go back to it or I rediscover it, it manages to get its hooks into me. And it's so dumb. It's just a dumb little Flash game. But again, this is the top rated game on Kongregate, and I think it's earned its title. This game does quite a few things right. If this was a game that you had to pay for, it might not go over so well considering that it's literally pretty much nothing but grinding. But you know what? If you have fun with a game, then, why not support it? Anyway, if you're into these dumb little Flash games like I am, and you have an hour or a few to kill, and you don't have to beat it all in one session like I did, you can do it over a few sessions, I would recommend giving this game a try. There's going to be a link to it in the description below. Or if you hate Kongregate, I'm pretty sure it exists on a lot of other sites. In fact, I think the place that I first played it on was Armor Games? I don't remember, it doesn't matter. And if you enjoyed this game, or if you've already played it and you actually really liked it and you're wondering when there's gonna be more, I was curious about that too. So I relaunched the game at one point and I clicked on the little splash screen, which took me to their Facebook page, which I guess is their official place for advertising, like their official web presence. They also have a Twitter, as I just discovered. But to my surprise, they actually this month, 5 or 6 days ago as of recording this, announced a new game that's coming soon, coming in 2018, probably the end of 2018, unfortunately. But the game's gonna be ready when it's ready. It's called Swords and Souls Never Seen, and I guess this is a sequel. Maybe kind of a sequel, because there's not really much of a story to the first game. But the little graphic that they used to advertise it, to announce it, says that it's coming to Steam. And now that I'm thinking to look at their Twitter, it looks like it was announced a little over a month and a half ago, so I guess I'm a little behind the times here. But hey, whatever. I'm excited for this new game, and I was happy to see that they're working on another one, because I mean, if you're the top-rated game on Kongregate for as long as you are, wouldn't you want to make a sequel? Obviously, you've hit some sort of gold or precious metal down in them thar hills, so you might as well keep going, right? People obviously really like it. But I want to know what you think. Have you played this game? What did you think of it? Did you like it, or did you hate the stupid, grindy nature of this stupid free game on stupid Kongregate? Let me know in the comments below. And if I introduced you to this game, let me know too, because I like introducing people to games. And I know this is a very strange video for this channel. It's not very often that I put so much attention into just some random free game that's on one of these free game websites. But if you want to see more showcases like this in the future, let me know. Because I honestly have no idea how this video is going to do. And I have no idea if this is a kind of video that anybody even really wants. So, hey, just let me know. Let me know. Anyway, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit... I sound like an idiot every time I try to do this. I was gonna say hit that notification bell. Literally the first time I've ever said anything like that. And then I go and make those noises. So, yeah, you know what? That's already there. It's probably better than my usual outro anyway. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!